In Lagos, people like to say money changes people, but the truth? Money only reveals who they have always been. My name is Adaeze Okonkwo, and this is the story of how I died in my own house while still breathing. Soft voice, fragile glass. No, thank you, Adaeze whispered. Dark glasses hid her eyes. A wheelchair by the window framed her broken, defeated form. The doctors had said the accident destroyed her spine and her sight. Blind, paralyzed, helpless. At least, that's what everyone believed. But inside that silent body was a woman watching every single move around her. 6 months earlier, Adaeze Okonkwo was the kind of woman people in Nigeria wrote about in business magazines. She had built a fintech company from a tiny office in Yaba into a tech empire. Investors chased her. Banks begged to partner with her. At 32, she sold the company for 180 million. People called her a genius. She married a man named Tunde Balogun shortly after. Tunde was handsome in that smooth Lagos boy way. Clean suits, charming smile, the kind of voice that made people trust him quickly. When they first met at a business conference in Abuja, he looked at her like she was the only woman in the room. "You're dangerous," he had joked. "Why?" Adaeze asked. "Because a woman this smart will make a man fall in love whether he wants to or not." She laughed. 3 months later, they were married. For 2 years, life looked perfect. But Lagos is a city that teaches you one thing quickly. When something looks too perfect, it usually is. Tunde started coming home late. Client meetings, he would say. Networking. Investment dinners. Adaeze noticed small things. A strange perfume smell. Late-night whispers on the phone. His phone suddenly locked with passwords. Whenever she walked into a room, conversations stopped. At first she blamed stress. Then she blamed herself. Maybe she worked too much. Maybe she wasn't paying him enough attention. Until one evening changed everything. Adaeze had returned early from a trip to Port Harcourt. The driver dropped her at the house around 5 p.m. The mansion was quiet, but upstairs, she heard laughter. Soft, intimate, coming from her bedroom. Adaeze walked up slowly. Her heart already knew what her eyes were about to confirm. She opened the door. Tunde was in bed, with Chioma, her personal assistant. For a moment, the room froze. Chioma screamed. Tunde jumped up. "Adaeze!" "It's not." But Adaeze didn't shout. She didn't cry. She didn't throw anything. She simply closed the door, walked downstairs, and sat in the living room, thinking. Divorce would have been easy. She had the money, the lawyers, the independence. But Adaeze didn't just want to leave. She wanted the truth. How long had this been happening? How many women? Was their marriage ever real? Or was she simply an investment to him? So, she created a plan. A plan so dangerous, even she was scared of it. 2 weeks later, Lagos woke up to shocking news. Adaeze Okonkwo had been involved in a terrible car accident on Lekki-Epe Expressway. Her car had crashed into a barrier. Doctors delivered devastating reports. Spinal damage, brain trauma, total loss of sight, permanent paralysis from the waist down. She would never walk again, never see again. The media called it tragic. Friends cried, family prayed, and Tunde Balogun played the role of a devastated husband perfectly. But lying in that hospital bed, eyes closed, body still, Adaeze heard something in his voice when he spoke to the doctor. Something that wasn't sadness. It was relief. 2 days later, she was brought home. Wheelchair, dark glasses, weak voice. "I'm sorry," she told Tunde quietly. "You didn't marry someone like this." Tunde squeezed her hand dramatically. "I'll never leave you." But that same night, after helping her settle in the living room, he went upstairs and made a phone call. Adaeze heard everything. "She's completely blind," Tunde whispered. "Yes, paralyzed too." A pause. Then he laughed softly. "This changes everything." The first week he acted like a saint, cooking for her, helping her move, speaking gently. But by the second week, a woman visited. Tunde introduced her as a nurse. But later that night, Adaeze heard kissing in the hallway. The nurse giggled. "Are you sure she can't see?" Tunde laughed. "My dear, she can't even move." By the third week, Tunde stopped hiding. Women came to the house during the day. They walked past Adaeze like she was furniture. They talked freely, laughed loudly, sometimes even mocked her. "She's young but finished," one woman said. "Imagine being rich but useless." Adaeze sat there quietly, listening, recording, watching. Because before the accident, she had installed hidden cameras across the entire house. Every room, every hallway, every conversation, everything was being saved. By the second month, she discovered something worse than cheating. Tunde was working with lawyers, trying to gain power of attorney over her finances. "She can't run her business anymore," he told them. "I must handle things." If successful, he would control her entire fortune, her investments, her properties, everything. But the final betrayal came one afternoon. A woman walked into the house. Her voice sounded painfully familiar. "Adaeze won't suspect anything," the woman said. Adaeze's heart froze. It was her younger sister, Amaka. Amaka laughed. "When do we finally take everything?" Tunde replied casually. "Once the paperwork finishes, we'll move her to a care home. And the money? Ours." They kissed, right there in the kitchen, for the first time in months. A tear rolled down Adaeze's cheek. Not sadness, rage. That night she made a phone call. "Zainab," she said quietly. Her best friend answered immediately. "You're ready?" Adaeze's voice turned cold. "Yes, it's time." 2 weeks later, Adaeze announced something surprising. She wanted to throw a party, a survival celebration, to thank everyone who supported her after the accident. Tunde loved the idea. He invited everyone, friends, family, business partners, even some of his secret girlfriends. More than 100 guests arrived that night. The mansion sparkled with music and champagne. Adaeze sat in her wheelchair at the center of the room, smiling gently, playing the helpless victim. At exactly 9 p.m., she asked for silence. The music stopped. Guests gathered around. "Thank you all for coming," she began softly. "These 6 months have taught me something important." People nodded politely. "I have learned who truly loves me." Her voice hardened slightly. "And who never did." Tunde shifted nervously. "But I must confess something tonight." She gripped the wheelchair. Then slowly, she stood up. The room gasped. She removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were sharp, focused, alive. "I'm not blind," Adaeze said. "And I'm definitely not paralyzed." The room exploded with shock. Before anyone could speak, every television screen in the house switched on. Security footage began playing. Tunde with different women. In the bedroom, in the kitchen, on the couch. Then, the worst video appeared. Tunde and Amaka, kissing, planning to steal everything. Their voices echoed through the speakers. Guests stood frozen. Some whispered in horror. Others pulled out their phones. Tunde looked like a ghost. Adaeze turned toward him calmly. "You thought I was helpless," she said. "You thought I couldn't see." Her lawyer stepped forward with documents, divorce papers, fraud charges, financial conspiracy evidence, 6 months of recordings. "You planned to bury me alive," Adaeze said quietly. "But while you were celebrating, I was preparing your funeral." She looked at Amaka. "You are no longer my sister." Then she walked out, leaving Tunde standing in a room full of witnesses, his empire collapsing in seconds. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Tunde got nothing. The prenup protected everything. He also faced criminal investigation for fraud. Amaka was cut off by the entire family. Adaeze, rebuilt her life stronger than before. Her story spread across Nigeria. The woman who pretended to be broken to expose betrayal. But the biggest lesson she learned was simple. When people think you are powerless, they reveal their real hearts. And sometimes, the person everyone believes is blind is actually the only one seeing the truth.